She said she needed space and time to think. Then her roommate sent me a photo of her in another man's hoodie. I met Emily during my second year of college. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary at first. Just a shared class, a few jokes exchanged over group projects, a coffee or two after lectures. But somehow, what started out as casual turned into everything. We were each other's person. For 3 years, she became woven into the fabric of my life. Every memory, every plan, every hope I had for the future had her in it. She was the type of person people gravitated toward. She had that easy, magnetic charm, the kind that made you feel like you were the only one in the room when she looked at you. And when she laughed, it felt like the sun came out, even on the worst days. I fell hard, maybe harder than I should have. But when you're in love, you don't think about protecting yourself. You just give. And I gave her everything. We went through the typical things: late-night study sessions, road trips in my beat-up Honda, breakups and reconciliations of friends around us. But we always stayed solid, or at least I thought we did. She met my family. I helped her move twice. I was there when she had a breakdown over failing a paper, and she was there when I lost my grandfather. We built something together. It felt real. Things only started to shift about 6 months ago when Emily said she wanted to move into an apartment with her friend Sophie. It wasn't that I minded. Sophie seemed cool, a little blunt, but honest. Emily said she just wanted more independence. She had been living at home and needed her own space. I helped them move in, assembled furniture, stayed over a couple nights a week. It was fine, until it wasn't. She started pulling away. Little things at first, fewer good morning texts, more time just needing to decompress after work. I told myself it was just the stress. She had a new job, long hours, a long commute. I didn't want to be the clingy boyfriend. I told myself relationships ebb and flow. But the distance kept growing, and my gut started telling me something was wrong. About 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday night, she called me. I remember exactly how she sounded, calm, almost rehearsed. "I need space," she said. I froze. "Space? What do you mean?" "I don't want to break, I need time to think. About everything. Us." It was like sucking the air out of me. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," she said quickly. "No, Matt. It's not you. It's me. I just feel overwhelmed. I need a few days. Just to breathe. Please." I didn't argue. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have pushed back, demanded answers. But I didn't want to be that guy. I respected her enough to give her what she asked for. I told her I understood, even though I didn't. And then the silence began. The first day, I stared at my phone like it would light up any second. It didn't. The second day, I drafted messages and deleted them. I didn't want to be the one who broke the deal. She asked for time. I gave it. By the third day, the silence felt like punishment. I kept replaying our last conversation in my head, wondering what I missed. Was there someone else? Was this her way of slowly ending things without confrontation? I hated that I even had those thoughts. I trusted her. God, I trusted her so much. On the 5th day, it happened. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling mindlessly through old photos of us on my phone, when I got a message from Sophie. I hadn't spoken to her since the move. Her text just said, "I know I couldn't, but you deserve to know." Attached was a photo. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was Emily, asleep on their living room couch, curled into a man I didn't recognize. His arm was around her. She was wearing a hoodie. His hoodie, not one of mine. The world fell out from under me. I stared at that image for a full minute, my chest tight, fingers trembling. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was disbelief, denial. I convinced myself maybe it was old. Maybe I was misinterpreting, maybe. Then another message from Sophie. "She told you she needed space, but this has been going on for at least a week. I've tried to stay out of it, but I can't anymore. I'm sorry." I didn't know what to say, what to think. I put my phone down, stood up, and paced the room like a ghost. Every memory, every sweet moment, every kiss, every plan, weighed on me like bricks. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow. I didn't write back. Not to Sophie. Not to Emily. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want explanations. That night, I watched Emily's Instagram story. Just out of curiosity. Maybe a part of me wanted confirmation. Maybe I wanted her to slip up. There she was, sitting in some coffee shop, a warm drink in hand, captioned, thinking deeply. I stared at the screen, wondering if she even felt the weight of what she'd done, or if she was just performing, curating some emotional crisis for the world while lying to the one person who gave her nothing but love. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat in the dark, watching the sunrise without her. I didn't text her the next day, or the day after that. Something inside me had shut off, not out of pettiness, not out of anger, but because the version of Emily I thought I knew had been replaced by a stranger. And I didn't know how to talk to a stranger who wore someone else's hoodie in the same room where we used to sit and plan weekend getaways. I kept rereading Sophie's messages, trying to find loopholes, a shred of misunderstanding. Maybe the guy was gay. Maybe it was all just a weird, innocent mistake. Maybe it really was just space, and Emily had fallen asleep next to a platonic friend. I hated how desperate my brain was to twist logic into a shape I could live with. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Sophie confirmed it that evening. She messaged me again, apologizing for getting involved. She said she tried to respect her roommate's privacy, but the hypocrisy was eating at her. Emily had told her I was too dependent, she felt smothered, that she needed freedom. And yet she turned around and invited someone new into her life like I was nothing more than an expired lease. I thanked her for telling me, though it felt like those words didn't mean anything. How do you thank someone for showing you the crack in your foundation? I still didn't confront Emily. Not yet. Something told me to wait. Not out of strategy, not out of cruelty, but because I needed to process everything before I faced her. I needed to bury the part of me that still believed she would come back and fix everything with a teary apology and some fragile excuse. I had to kill the hope before I could listen to her lies. 3 days after the photo, she finally texted, "I've been thinking a lot. Want to talk soon?" There it was. So casual, so sterile, like nothing had happened. Like 5 days of silence and betrayal could be bridged with a 7-word message. I didn't answer right away. I stared at it, let it sit, then turned my phone over and went for a walk. It was freezing outside, but I welcomed the numbness. It matched how I felt. "Night," I replied. "Yeah? When and where?" She suggested a coffee shop we used to frequent. A quiet little place with dim lighting and overpriced pastries. The kind of place you go to have grown-up conversations. Fitting, I guess. I arrived early. I didn't want to, but something about being late made me feel weak, like she would think I hesitated. I needed every sliver of strength I could fake. She walked in 10 minutes later, hair pulled back in a loose bun, oversized coat draped over her like armor. She looked nervous, guilty maybe, or maybe I just hoped she did. "Hey," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I nodded. "Hey." There was a pause. That awful, suffocating silence that always comes before someone tries to rewrite history. "I'm sorry for going quiet," she began. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't respond. Just watched her. "I've just been confused," she continued. I needed to step back and figure. Everything's been moving so fast lately, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. "You said you needed space," I said, voice calm, even. "I do. But not because of you. I don't know who I am outside of us anymore." I could hear the script in her tone. The buzzwords: self-discovery, identity, emotional burnout. All perfectly valid things, if they weren't being used to disguise betrayal. "Space," I said slowly. "You found comfort in someone else's arms." Her eyes widened for a second, a flash of panic. Then, "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Emily." She murmured. "Wait, did Sophie say something? She's been acting weird." I took out my phone and slid it across the table. The photo was already open. Her expression cracked the moment she saw it. It was like watching someone's mask fall off mid-performance. The flash of recognition, the brief recoil, the scrambling mind searching for a recovery line. Matt, it's not what it looks like." I said nothing. She reached for the phone. I pulled it, touch it. "He's just a friend," she said, her voice rising a little. "I wasn't cheating. We just talked. I fell asleep. In his hoodie. It was cold." I let out the smallest laugh. It wasn't funny, but I laughed anyway. It was either that or cry. "Matt, please. Understand what I've been going through. I've felt so alone. And you've been so, I don't know, just." I needed air. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. "You just told me you wanted out," I said. "You didn't have to make me feel crazy for trusting you. I mean for it to swear. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. And now." Her lips parted, but she had no answer. I stood up, slid my phone back into my pocket. "I hope you want, Emily. I really do. But I'm done being your placeholder while you explore." She looked like she might cry, or scream, or beg, but I didn't wait to find out. I just walked out. I didn't look back when I walked out of the cafe. I didn't check to see if she followed. Didn't glance at my phone for a message. Didn't hesitate at the crosswalk. I just kept walking until the cold burned through my coat and the wind sliced through my thoughts like glass. My fingers were numb. My chest wasn't far behind. I don't remember how long I walked or where I even went. Just that by the time I got home, my legs ached and my ears were ringing. I collapsed on the couch, stared at the ceiling and tried to feel something. But nothing came. Not anger, not heartbreak, not even relief. Just this dull emptiness, like someone had scooped everything out of me and left an echo behind. That night, Sophie messaged me again. Did she finally talk to you? Yeah, and? She lied, then panicked, then blamed the weather. Sounds about right. I didn't know how to reply to that. Sophie had no reason to get involved, no incentive to pick a side. She lived with Emily. She saw her every day, but she still chose to send me that photo, that truth. And for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about that choice. Over the next few days, Emily tried reaching out again. Few texts, a missed call, then another. I hate how things ended. I wish you'd let me explain. I didn't handle it right, but I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk one more time? Please. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood something that took me years to learn. People who love you don't make you beg for the truth. By the end of the week, she stopped texting, and that's when the rumors started. Apparently, the guy in the hoodie, his name was Tyler, wasn't new. He'd been around for a while. One of those gym buddies who just got her. Someone she swore was harmless. According to Sophie, Emily had been emotionally checked out for months, but she didn't want to be the bad guy. But when mutual friends started messaging me with questions, I didn't lie. I didn't protect her. I just told the truth. Sophie, meanwhile, became this unexpected anchor. We didn't talk much at first, just a few check-ins. But eventually, we met up, mostly because she wanted to return some of my stuff Emily still had. A hoodie, a charger, a few books I forgot even existed. She brought them in a small bag. No ceremony, no small talk. You doing okay? She asked as we stood awkwardly in the parking lot of a diner. I shrugged. Some days. I didn't send you that photo to her. She looked at me for a long second. I sent it because you deserve the truth. And because watching her pretend to be a victim while she climbed into someone else's arms made me... That surprised me. The bluntness, the heat in her voice. It was the first time I realized Sophie wasn't just some roommate caught in the middle. She was pissed, disappointed, maybe even hurt, in her own way. You two close? I asked carefully. She shook her head. We were. But living with someone shows you who they are. She lies a lot more than you. We ended up sitting on the curb, sipping gas station coffee, talking about everything except Emily. It was strange, easy even. Sophie had this dry sense of humor, razor-sharp sarcasm that made me laugh even when I didn't want to. And she didn't treat me like I was broken. She didn't coddle or tiptoe. She just showed up. It became a habit. A text here, a meme there, a walk, a late-night coffee. We never crossed a line. There was no flirting, no rebound energy. Just two people who saw the same storm from different windows. Meanwhile, Emily's carefully curated narrative began to unravel. People started putting the pieces together. Tyler wasn't the mysterious new flame she claimed. He was someone she'd been hiding in the background. Her emotional confusion wasn't some abstract struggle. It was a cover for calculated choices. Sophie told me she finally confronted her one night. She flipped out, she said over the phone. Told me I betrayed her, that I ruined things. You just told the truth, I said. Exactly. But I guess the truth feels like betrayal when... There was a long pause on the line. I'm sorry you got caught in it, I added. I'm not, Sophie said. If anything, I'm glad it happened. I was starting to forget. We didn't talk about Emily again for a while, but she didn't go away. One night, I got a message from a random number. Just a photo. A memory from over a year ago. Me and Emily at a music festival, arms wrapped around each other, smiles too wide, eyes too naive. Underneath it, a version of us. No name, no explanation, but I knew it was her. I stared at it for a long time. The person didn't exist anymore. Neither of us did. And I wasn't going to chase ghosts. I deleted the picture. It had been a month since that last message. I didn't respond then, and she didn't follow up. Part of me expected her to double down, show up unannounced, pull some grand romantic gesture from a Netflix drama. But no, she just disappeared. Or maybe she moved on to the next version of space. I didn't care enough to find out. Life became quiet again. Not peaceful, not yet, but quiet. I rebuilt my routines, got back into the gym, picked up extra shifts at work, started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. I even cleaned out my car, something Emily used to nag me about endlessly. The absence started to feel like air instead of weight. Sophie and I kept in touch. No one really understood it. Not our mutual friends, not even myself. It wasn't romantic, at least not in the way people assumed. It was just honest. She didn't ask me to explain my silences, didn't try to fill them either. She was just there, present, unapologetically herself. And I needed that more than I realized. One evening, we found ourselves at the same dive bar near campus. It was purely by chance. She came with a coworker, I came with an old friend. We ran into each other at the bar, both reaching for the same sad bowl of pretzels. "You stalking me?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "Obviously," I replied. "I've been tracking your pretzel patterns for weeks." She smiled. Something in my chest softened. That night, we ended up sitting outside on the curb, the same way we did that day she returned my stuff. The cold bit at our fingertips, and our breath hung in the air like fog. "You had it?" she asked. "About what?" "If she hadn't lied. If you hadn't found out." I hesitated. "Yeah, sometimes. And? I think I would have stayed. I think of me back the way I loved her." Sophie nodded slowly. "That's the worst part, isn't it? Realizing you were always more in than they were." There was no bitterness in her voice, just tired truth. I looked over at her. "And you? Ever think about moving out?" She chuckled dryly. "Every single day." "Why haven't you?" "Lease ends in 2 months. Then I'm gone. Not just from the apartment. From this city, maybe." I didn't expect that. "Really?" She nodded. "Thinking about moving to Seattle. Fresh start. New job. Less drama." I didn't know what to say. I just looked at her, realizing that the only honest person to come out of this mess might not be sticking around. "Good for you," I finally said. We didn't talk much more that night, but something shifted, not in a dramatic, cinematic way. Just a quiet understanding that nothing lasts forever, not even the good people who show up when you're broken. A week later, Emily called. Not texted, called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Matt?" This was small, hesitant. "Yeah? I just know I shouldn't be calling, but I need to say something." I didn't respond. "I messed up," she continued. "I thought Tyler was what I needed. I thought you were the problem, that I needed space to be myself. But he wasn't real. It was just easy. And you were always there, always trying. I didn't realize what I had until..." I cut her off. "Emily." She stopped talking. "I'm glad you figured it out, but I don't need to hear it." "But No, you don't get to explain now. You had the chance to be honest. You asked for space and filled it with someone else. I'm not angry. I'm not even sad anymore. But I'm not your safety net. Soft place you land when reality doesn't live." Then, softly, "I really did love you." Paused. "Maybe. But not enough to be honest with me." She didn't argue. "Take care of yourself, Emily." I ended the call. And just like that, the door finally closed. Not slammed, not locked. Just quietly, firmly, completely shut. Later that me. "Guess who just asked if I could put in a good..." "Let me guess. She's reflecting deeply. She's a philosopher now. Instagram story and everything." I laughed out loud in the middle of a grocery aisle. It felt good to laugh. Sophie and I met for lunch a few days later. She brought a list of apartments she was considering, and I helped her rank them based on not psycho roommate-prone vibes. "I'm leaving on with the she said, stabbing her fork. "Why?" "Sunlight and no Emily." "Can't argue with that." She then said, "You're doing better." "Am I?" "Yeah. You're sarcastic again." I smiled. "Me drown in it." She shrugged. "You would have done the same for me." I wasn't so sure. But I didn't argue. Something about her felt steady, like she wasn't there to rescue me, but to remind me I could swim. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Sophie moved out 2 weeks later. I offered to help her pack, half expecting her to say no. She never liked depending on anyone. But she said yes. We spent a Saturday afternoon hauling boxes down 3 flights of stairs, cursing the building's ancient elevator and lights every time something nearly toppled out of a box labeled "misc crap." Her new place was small but clean. Lots of windows. Warm light on the hardwood floors. No ghosts. No reminders. We ordered pizza and sat cross-legged in the middle of her empty living room, eating off the lid of the box like college kids. She looked happy. Tired, but happy. "You good?" I asked. She leaned back on her palms, looking up at the ceiling. "Yeah, I think so." I nodded. "You deserve..." She smirked. "So do you. Took you long enough to figure that out." We sat in silence for a moment. Not awkward, just still. I'll miss seeing you around, quieter than I meant to. Me. Part. Yeah, but, you know, I know. There was a lot I didn't say that night, like how I'd started waking up without that hollow ache in my chest, how I could finally listen to music again without bracing for emotional landmines, how being around her made the worst year of my life feel a little less like failure and a little more like a reroute. But I didn't say it, because not everything needs to be spoken out loud to be true. The following week, I got a message from one of our mutual friends, Sarah. She'd been closer to Emily than to me, but we were all part of the same social circle. I hadn't heard from her in months. Hey, weird question. Emily actually cheat on you? She's telling people you broke up with her because you were scared of commitment. I read it twice, then once more. There it was, the rewrite, the final twist of the knife. I should have expected it, but something about the pettiness still caught me off guard. After all the silence, she still couldn't take accountability. I replied simply, "Ask Sophie." An hour later, Sarah followed up. Holy hell, she told me everything. I had no idea. I'm sorry, I didn't answer that one. I didn't need the apology. I didn't even need the validation. But I was glad someone else finally saw it. Not because I wanted people to turn on Emily, just because I wanted someone to see me, to realize I wasn't crazy, that the slow bleed I went through wasn't self-inflicted. Word spread, not because I wanted it to, but because people started connecting dots on their own. She lost a few friends, burned a few bridges. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't even watch it happen. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a small, quiet part of me that felt like something had been set right. Sophie called it karma. I called it closure. Meanwhile, things with Sophie remained simple. No labels, no pressure, just real, honest presence. Sometimes we went days without talking. And then suddenly one of us would send a weird meme at 2 a.m. and we'd end up on the phone until sunrise. Sometimes we'd get dinner and spend the whole time mocking the worst people we used to know. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. And that was okay. One night, about a month after she moved, she invited me over. Her place still smelled like fresh paint and cardboard boxes. She had fairy lights up, half-done art on the walls, an aggressively fluffy blanket draped across the couch. We sat side by side, sharing a pint of ice cream, watching a terrible movie with even worse CGI. Somewhere between a robotic shark attack and a mid-movie plot twist, I looked over at her and realized I hadn't thought about Emily in days. Sophie caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. What? Nothing, I said, smiling. You've got ice cream on your face. She wiped at it, missed, and then shoved a spoonful at my nose in retaliation. We wrestled like teens, the couch creaking beneath us, laughter spilling into the room like light, and for the first time it hit me. This was what safety felt like. Not sparks or grand gestures, just trust, ease, the kind of comfort that doesn't ask you to shrink. After the movie, we sat in the quiet for a while, legs tangled, the room lit only by the soft glow of her lamps. Think we met because of all that chaos? She asked suddenly. I try not to remember. Fair. I looked at her. But I think about it sometimes. And? I think the mess wasn't the point. I think you were. She didn't say anything. Then, softly, not broken, you know. You're just someone who loved the wrong person too hard. I nodded. So were you. We didn't kiss that night. There was no dramatic swelling music, no whispered confessions. Just her head on my shoulder and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, the worst part of the story was finally over. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted in patches, exposing dull grass and sidewalks stained with salt. The city didn't look new, but it felt different. Or maybe I was the one who'd changed. Emily hadn't tried to contact me since that phone call. Maybe someone finally told her the truth wasn't going away. Maybe she realized I wasn't going to save her from the story she wrote for herself. Or maybe for the first time she just let go. It didn't matter. I had let go first. Sophie and I never put a label on what we were. We didn't need to. We saw each other often. Some nights we'd stay in. Other times we'd drive around with no destination. Windows down, music playing too loud, laughing at things that weren't even funny. She'd play old indie tracks I never heard before, and I'd make her list my shameless guilty pleasures. It was balanced, honest, easy. I told her things I'd never said out loud before, like how I blamed myself for not noticing Emily's shift earlier, how I thought if I had been more exciting, more unpredictable, maybe she wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Sophie listened without flinching. She never told me I was wrong. She just reminded me it wasn't my job to make someone stay. I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until she said it. One night, in late April, Sophie and I sat on the hood of her car outside an old lookout point. The city lights flickered below us. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a blanket instead of a noose. I got the job, she said. I turned to her. She nodded, trying to smile but not quite making it. They want me to start in June. But I didn't show it. That's amazing, I said. You deserve it. Yeah, a pause. Still feels weird. I didn't ask if she meant leaving, or leaving me, or whatever we were. She looked. I wasn't expecting any of this, you know? United States. The mess. The clarity. And I don't want to ruin it by more than it is, she said. But I also don't want to leave thinking it didn't mean something. It meant everything, I said quietly. She looked at me then, and something in her eyes softened. We didn't make promises. We didn't plan some long-distance arrangement or pretend like we knew what the future looked like. We just sat there, two people who found each other in the wreckage, who helped each other heal, who taught each other how to be soft again without breaking. When she left for Seattle 6 weeks later, I helped her pack the last few boxes. We hugged longer than friends do, but said goodbye like people who trust the door won't fully close. We still talk. Not every day, but enough. I send her dumb videos. She sends me photos of rainy sidewalks and indie bookstore cats. Sometimes we call, sometimes we don't. And it's okay. There's no pressure in. Then I said, I don't think I needed to, because forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in. Sometimes it just means letting yourself walk away without carrying their weight anymore. And I did. I walked away, lighter than I'd ever been. Not because I won, not because she lost, but because I survived, because I stopped chasing closure in people who could never offer it, and instead found peace in someone who never had anything to gain by standing beside me, except me. Sophie once told me that we meet the right people at the wrong time so we can become the right person when the time's right. Maybe she was right. Or maybe it doesn't matter. Because whether she stays in Seattle or comes back, whether we end up in the same zip code or just the same memory, I know this. The girl who said she needed space left a hole. But the woman who stepped into that space helped me rebuild. And this time, I didn't have to lose myself to